The United States doesn't just manufacture money, it manipulates the entire global financial system to maintain its dominance. This isn't some harmless economic strategy, it's a well-oiled machine designed to benefit a select few while shackling the rest of the world to its greed and recklessness. It's time to call it out for what it really is: financial warfare, with the US at the center, pulling all the strings. Let's start with the Federal Reserve, the so-called independent central bank of the United States. Independent? Please. The Fed is the beating heart of this money-making monstrosity. When the US government wants to spend more than it earns, and it always does, it issues debt in the form of treasury bonds. Now, who buys this debt? Some of it is bought by investors and foreign governments, sure. But a massive chunk of it is scooped up by the Fed, which has the power to create money out of thin air. No, this isn't an exaggeration. They literally create digital dollars with a few keystrokes. They don't print it physically anymore, why bother? It's faster and cleaner to just generate electronic reserves that flow into the banking system. And then, just like that, the US economy is flush with new money. Sounds clever, right? Except this isn't innovation, it's exploitation. The consequences of this reckless money creation ripple across the globe, hurting ordinary people while the elites laugh all the way to the bank. The process doesn't stop there. The US banking system takes this new money and multiplies it through fractional reserve banking. Here's how it works: banks are only required to keep a small percentage of deposits as reserves, say, 10%. The rest, they lend it out. So if you deposit $1,000, the bank can lend $900 to someone else. That $900 ends up in another bank account, where 90% of that can be lent out again. This cycle repeats, creating money on top of money until the original deposit has been multiplied tenfold. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room, the US dollar. It's not just a currency, it's a weapon. Decades ago, the US struck deals to ensure that oil, the lifeblood of the global economy, would be traded exclusively in dollars. This petrodollar system forces countries around the world to stockpile dollars to buy oil, effectively giving the US a blank check to print money without consequence. Think about it: if every country needs dollars to function, the US can flood the market with its currency, spend it recklessly, and still come out ahead. Inflation. Who cares? The world's demand for dollars absorbs most of the damage. And when inflation does hit, it's the developing nations, the ones least equipped to handle it, that suffer the most. This isn't just unfair, it's downright predatory. The US doesn't stop there. It uses the dollar's dominance as a geopolitical weapon. Countries that dare to challenge US interests, whether it's Iran, Russia, or even smaller nations, face sanctions that cut them off from the dollar-based global financial system. This isn't just economic pressure, it's financial strangulation. The US wields the dollar like a sword, punishing anyone who steps out of line while securing its own dominance. Meanwhile, back home, the US government is drowning in debt, over $30 trillion and counting. For any other country, this level of debt would be catastrophic. But not for the United States. Why? Because it can manufacture money and force the world to keep accepting its currency. Foreign governments, terrified of economic collapse, buy US Treasury bonds, effectively lending America money to keep its economy afloat. It's a cycle of dependency that the US has carefully cultivated for decades. But let's not pretend this system benefits everyone in the US. It doesn't. The elites, the Wall Street bankers, the corporate executives, the politicians, they're the ones reaping the rewards. The endless money printing inflates asset bubbles, driving up the prices of stocks, real estate, and other investments. The rich get richer, their wealth skyrocketing as the value of their assets climbs. And the rest of us? We're left behind, struggling to afford homes, education, and basic necessities. This system is designed to concentrate wealth and power in the hands of a few. It's why billionaires exist while millions live paycheck to paycheck. It's why the stock market hits record highs while wages stagnate. It's why young people are drowning in student debt, why families can't afford healthcare, and why retirees are terrified of running out of money. And let's not forget the global consequences. The US exports its problems to the rest of the world. When the Fed prints money, it devalues the dollar, making it harder for other countries to repay dollar-denominated debts. Developing nations, already struggling with poverty and instability, are hit the hardest. Their currencies lose value, their economies falter, and their people suffer, all because the US prioritizes its own interests over global stability. But here's the kicker: this system isn't sustainable. The cracks are already showing. Countries like China, Russia, and even smaller economies are finding ways to bypass the dollar. They're creating trade agreements in their own currencies, developing digital payment systems, and stockpiling gold. They see what the US is doing, and they're fighting back. If the dollar loses its status as the world's reserve currency, the entire house of cards collapses. The US won't be able to print money with impunity. Its debt will become unmanageable. Its economy will face a reckoning unlike anything we've seen before. And the rest of the world, they'll be left to pick up the pieces. This isn't just about economics, it's about power. The US has built an empire on the back of its financial system, using the dollar to control, exploit, and dominate. But empires fall, and when this one does, it won't be pretty. The question is, will the US adapt and create a fairer system, or will it cling to its old ways, dragging everyone else down with it? Only time will tell.